Good morning, everyone. This is Servium calling. Welcome to the next in our series of INOOT webinars. My name is Steve Dawes and I'm your host today. So welcome, thank you for taking the time to join us. Today, we're very much focused around helping you as our customers with the challenges of remote working. And we're partnering with VMware to deliver this today. And helping me to do this, I'd like to introduce Dominic Wiffin from VMware, who's an end-user computing specialist. So, morning, Dom. How are you keeping?
Morning, Steve. Yeah, very well, thank you.
Good
morning, everybody.
Glad to see you staying safe. That's excellent. So, for everyone's benefit, the purpose of our webinars is to help you as our customers talk about groundbreaking technologies, disruptive technologies, how we can help you make informed decisions. Obviously, everyone's got a challenge at the moment around working from home, flexible working, and so on and so forth. Servium as a business, well, you know, we're maintaining business as usual. We're still operating. We've implemented our DR plan. We've got everyone working from home where possible. We've got multiple warehouses. So, you know, we're in a good position to help you moving forward as well. So, really, 27th of March, it is about INOOT, but I always like to have a look back on history and see what's happened on this day. So 1963, Quentin Tarantino, the American actor famous for Pulp Fiction, was born in Tennessee. In 1964, the first true pirate radio station was launched, Radio Caroline, for anyone of my era can remember that. 1977 was the world's worst aviation disaster. 583 people lost their lives when two Boeing 747s collided in Tenerife. 1995, for any Take That fans out there, their famous song Back for Good went to #1 in 31 countries. In 1995, 67th Academy Awards, Forrest Gump wins Best Picture and Tom Hanks wins Best Actor. And in 2002, unfortunately, Dudley Moore, the English actor and comedian, died aged 66. So that's 27th of March, but more importantly, it's all about INOOT. So for those of you who registered early, we did manage to send Smarties out before we got into partial lockdown. So everyone just put your feet up, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and we'll start proceedings off. We are recording the webinar as usual. We're using Zoom to deliver this. Again, a great collaborative way for you as our customers. So we'll be sharing the recording. It will then be published on our YouTube channel. We'll be taking questions at the end as well, and also a poll. So let's get the proceedings underway. So a little bit of background on Servium, what we're all about. Again, for those of you who don't really know Servium, our business is all around putting you, our customer, at the center of everything we do. What is your challenge? We're there to provide essential IT, be your troubleshooter, walk in your shoes. We deliver tremendous value as a business. We have exceptional account management. We have a great services ecosystem. We have great partner relationships. Again, today working with VMware on this particular session. So we do a lot of value. Our approach really is a complete cycle, end-to-end approach, helping you no matter how big, small your challenge is, everything from strategy, design, implement, and support. But the most important thing probably to me is the review, how we delivered, how good was it on time, in budget, etc. We have a great ecosystem that you have access to as our customers, through our partners, through our vendors, and so on. Tremendous breadth and depth and scale. I think for me, again, the most important thing is the transparency. What we're doing in the industry is not unique when it comes to using partners to deliver subject matter expertise. But when we engage, we tell you who we're using and why we're using. So to me, the transparency is absolutely key. There's a lot we can do where we can help you, whether it's, you know, you're short of resource at the moment, you need sort of feet on the street where it's safe. You know, we can help you across a whole range of services. So I encourage you to watch one of our earlier INOOTs, which was all around the services ecosystem. And if you look at our services, our service Pathfinder, the Servium Pathfinder, the area we focus on today is very much Workspace. And remote working, flexible working, how we can help you with VMware, enable your end users now to more sort of easily work from home. So I'd like to hand over to Dom as our expert today. Dom is from VMware. He's got a lot of expertise around end user computing. So Dom, I'll hand over to you. The floor's yours, sir.
Brilliant, thanks, Steve. No, so really appreciate everyone joining today. What I'd like to do is just to kind of give you a broad overview in terms of what our modern workforce proposition consists of. What I'd also like to do is just to give you an overview in terms of how VMware addressed some of those current challenges that we see. You know, I think we've seen massively over the last few weeks a number of organizations trying to set up employees really quickly, ensuring that they've got access to all of their applications and devices and everything else that they need in order to carry on and be productive away from the office. And depending on how far particular customer would be on that journey really determines on how quickly that can be done. And as I'm sure you're aware, supporting end users can be challenging, and there's been a massive focus from a number of organizations on things like employee experience. So how do we retain our top talent? How do we ensure that our users have all the tools that they need to have access to in order for them to carry out their day-to-day job? So what I'd like to do is just start with this kind of visual slide. So this is typically what we see across many organizations that we interact with. Most businesses are on that journey or that transition to what we refer to as a digital workspace. And the current environment can be typically challenging, especially when we take into a number of different factors into consideration. So typically there's a perception on IT can be a bit of a blocker when it comes to technology. We see a huge amount of complexity. We see a huge amount of devices and tooling, and managing that end user's experience can be typically difficult. We see huge amounts of configuration complexity, and we see budgets from IT traditionally dropping year on year, which again can make all of those elements particularly challenging. So as we help our customers evolve and kind of take on this transition, what we're doing is we're looking at end user experience as being one of the key drivers and one of the key business priorities to kind of help out on that journey. But I think what it's also important to point out is it can be quite difficult. It can be it's not one size fits all, is what I'm trying to say. And if we're running multiple applications across an estate, it can be really challenging. But we do have a number of tools which can help you go through that journey. So workforces can be disparate and also very complicated. So how do we adapt when most of our employees are now forced to work from home? And this is something kind of we've seen over the last 3 or 4 weeks. And no doubt those users that are now forced to work from home will begin to run into a number of different challenges, but typically what we see is multiple tools, as I mentioned. Applications can prevent those multiple different passwords, and it can be difficult from IT from a perspective. So how do we manage users? How do we manage security? And typically there tends to be a bit of a trade-off between the two. And again, if we go back to employee experience, most users are now looking to be enabled to be able to work from home. And if we look at some stats that we've put together here on that a number of users would be willing to quit their job if they can't get access to the tools that they need or actually have the ability to do so. And again, this can be particularly tricky, especially when we're looking to retain that top talent as well. And if we think about the employee as well, the employee is just looking to get access to the stuff. They're just looking for the most simple way to do so. They're looking to get access to their applications. They don't really care what the infrastructure looks like behind that. So if we look at how remote working has evolved over time, we know that when employees are out and about, when they're able to get access to all of their stuff, they can be very productive. There tends to be a lower absentee rate. So I know, if I speak about my own experience, I can't remember the last time I actually took a physical day off sick. We know that remote working can help with retention of those staff, but also as part of ensuring that the users are productive, that it can help along from a bottom line point of view as well. But I guess there isn't really a secret source as such. So there tends to be a multiple different dynamics that make up remote working and making that successful. And we see these three areas, or these three key areas to actually think about. So if we think about physical, how to ensure that the users have got access to things like meeting rooms and devices. We need to ensure that the working environment that they're actually able to access their stuff from is quiet. Have they got stable internet connection? Can they get into the network? Can they access all of the stuff that they need to get access to? And if we think from a cultural standpoint as well, most people who are used to remote working tend to now work from things like coffee shops and cafes, and they're more than happy to operate in this virtual world and switch on their camera and things like that. So if those things are taken into consideration, then again, this can, if you look at from a security standpoint, if we're accessing from cafes, how secure are those users when they're on the network? But technologically, we need to ensure that we've got the right physical elements in place as well. And this is where, from an employee experience point of view, HR become really relevant, and HR need to be able to work with IT to create a common goal to ensure that the users are engaged and empowered in order to access their stuff. And certainly we think that technology is key to do all of that. But there is a huge challenge as part of this, and it tends to be that the technologies as we see it today is a very disparate landscape. So most organizations have a number of different tools across their estate. And the real challenge here is, how do we bring all of these tools together to ensure that the user's got access in a way that's going to be really seamless, really clean interface. They're able just to simply just launch that application, not have to worry about passcodes, not have to worry about security, and effectively that platform becomes a running rail in order for them to get access to the applications and desktops and information that they require for them to remain productive, especially when we think about today's challenges that we're under. And what VMware can do, we can actually do this across any device. So we support all the different device types, whether it be Windows 10, Mac OS, iOS, Android, or rugged devices, multiple different use cases. We can provision various different applications, whether they be SaaS, web, native, virtual, in a single catalog for the user to simply launch those applications from, and not have to worry about having to log into various different tool sets to do so. And from an IT standpoint, it can reduce a huge amount of complexity and a huge amount of headaches from managing multiple different tools. And all these things are ultimately going to drive a much better employee experience. So how can IT support the new reality? So if we give them access to a digital workspace, we can give them access to the business applications and critical applications that they need. We can become a little bit more picky in terms of the applications that we present out to that user. We can ensure that they've got access to the applications, but the data that resides within those applications is secure. And we can implement many policies in compliance rules in the back-end infrastructure side of things to ensure that when a application is launched, that it's launched in a very secure way to ensure that that data remains secure. And I think we've also seen a huge amount of challenges around things like phishing and cyber attacks and surface attacks, especially as IT has to relax some of those security protocols to enable users to get access to the information applications they require. We need to keep those remote employees engaged as well. So how do we do this? So one of the ways that we do it internally is we give all of our users a device choice. So from an onboarding point of view, a user comes into our organization, we give them a device choice, whether it be a Mac, a Windows 10, a Dell machine, a mobile device, whichever. The user would then log in, given the username and password that the business has created for them on day one, and they're able to become productive from the minute that they start. So they're not having to wait around for IT to image a laptop, or not have to wait around for access to various different applications. They can be productive straight away. And we can actually start this onboarding experience much sooner than day one as well. So we like to call this like kind of 0-day productivity, which means that we can begin to onboard that user even before they start. So from a life cycle point of view, we onboard the user, we give them access to all the information that they need in order for them to be productive from wherever they are, whether they be remote, whether they be office-based, or whether they be based out in the field somewhere. And then if they leave the organization, we can simply offboard them. So it becomes more of an enrollment process and an unenrollment process at the end of that. As I said as well, it's not just the device, it's the experience that we give them throughout all of that. So if we can give them the right size hardware, we give them optimal performance in terms of their applications, and we ensure that they've got all of the accessories and tooling that they need in order for them to remain productive. So just from a Windows 10 point of view, there's many organizations still using various different tools in order to provision and image Windows 10. As the shift from Windows 7 to 10 is a lot more relevant, then modern provisioning and modern capability around managing that device operating system becomes a lot more relevant. Rather than having to domain join that machine, we don't have to do that anymore. What we can do is simply enroll that device, push out various different profiles and compliance rules in order to support that particular user or business unit, deliver the applications in a modern format, and give them access to a unified catalog. I can simply self-serve the applications moving forward. So remote force, if we think about an employee who's typically remote. Most people start traveling to meetings. They could be on various different virtual meetings. They'll be taking notes. They'll be uploading information to things like Salesforce, which is one of the applications we use internally. Always on the move. And it doesn't give them a huge amount of time between, you know, their work life and home life. So being able to access all of the applications and information on their devices means that those micro moments we can take advantage of. So whether that be on a train, whether that be being able to quickly respond to emails on a mobile device or tablet, being able to quickly log into an application to approve an expenses report, things like that becomes ultimately more relevant. And the use cases that we can actually help customers with typically move across all of these. So we can help customers on a Windows 7 to 10 migration. We can assist with home and remote working. If customers are looking at relocating from one premise to another, we can assist with that too. If their internal teams are relatively small and disparate, then again, we can help with that. So there's multiple different use cases that Workspace ONE becomes ultimately relevant for. Mac and Chrome management seems to be evolving massively across the enterprise organizations. So again, this is a use case that we can capture and support as part of the Workspace ONE platform. Apologies, my screen's just frozen a minute. There we go.
There you go, Tom. Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, that's better. So ultimately, if we deliver that unified workspace experience, we can give them access to all of the applications in one single catalog. And this is what's visually shown on screen now. So as you can see, from a device point of view, the catalog remains exactly the same. Seamless access and experience on whichever device. We've also implemented a number of different AI capabilities into the platform recently. So again, this is going to enhance from a employee experience point of view. That's kind of typically what we see. I'll just go back to that slide just really quickly. So there's a huge amount of threats out there, and we need to be able to augment that and make action on it. So things like zero trust principles becomes really, really important. So being able to put in data loss protection policies between the device and the applications, looking at identity and access, ensuring that a device is enrolled or at least has some policies in place, putting users into various different smart groups to ensure that they've only got access to the applications that they need. Intelligence is a new element to the platform that we've added recently. So being able to hook into external security platforms and being able to actually utilize the information that comes out of those and ingesting it into the platform, and then being able to actually make informed decisions on those actions. So what we're doing is we're building in that intrinsic zero trust from day one. We can start to look at the users, the devices, the identity, encryption, and the applications and data. Again, we can get really, really granular with that side of things as well. Just in the interest of time, I'm just going to move on really, really quickly. So from a modern management point of view, again, the traditional way, high touch imaging, modern moves us into this world where we could just provision the device from anywhere. So a user could potentially have a device shipped out to their house, they log on, and then the automated process kicks in. And if you are looking to support your users remotely, then we also have a tool called Workspace One Assist, which is now available across Windows, Android, and iOS. And again, this can be extremely powerful for organizations when managing a remote disparate workforce. Recently, we announced a partnership with Microsoft. So being able to offer joint value. So as part of this partnership that we're now in, we're able to provision desktops and applications on Azure, and we can leverage all of the key functionality that's available within Windows Virtual Desktop, but give that user an enterprise best-in-class experience across their device. So if you want to find out a little bit more about this, this is something that we can touch on at a later time. But ultimately provide customers with the choice in terms of where they're going to deploy. So we also have a number of partnerships with the likes of IBM, AWS, but we can also assist customers running on-premise too. We don't really care where those applications are run, but what we can do is give customers that flexibility and scalability to burst out into cloud when and as required, but ultimately run the consistent tool set to what they're used to. So just lastly, this has been the VMware vision for the last 3 years. So being able to support any worker, any work style, any workplace, any device type, any application across any of that cloud infrastructure, but give customers that tooling to enable us to do that. We've got a huge amount of resource available to assist customers on that journey. So if anybody would like to know any further, then feel free to reach out to me directly or the team at Servian. Thank you.
Okay, Dom, thanks. Thanks very much for that. Really good insight into the, how VMware is sort of helping customers enable sort of more flexible working and sort of digital workspace. So we can take questions now. There's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. So all the questions are anonymous, and we can put Dom on the spot, which I always like to do, put the co-presenters on the spot.
No problem.
So if you want to hit the Q&A button, we'll see the questions. Like I say, they are anonymous. So Dom, first one from Alan in relation to deployment. How easy is it to implement Workspace One?
Okay, so the answer to that question would be it is relatively simple to deploy. We would always recommend that customers look at professional services to assist. We have a huge amount of free resource available. So if any customers would like any assistance on setting up Workspace One, then absolutely we can help them to do that.
Okay, so a question from Brian in relation to licensing. How is Workspace One licensed?
Okay, so we're actually able to support users on a per device or per user basis. And we can mix and match between users. So if a user has multiple different devices and it's relevant for them to have a user-based license, then absolutely we can do that. But if they've got one particular device, again, we can support that too. We can mix and match.
Okay. What about a question from Frank in relation to training? What about the impact on the sort of wider workforce and training and so on? So from an end user point of view, I think what's getting out there, Dom, is, what about the end user experience, and what about, is there any additional training needed for the end user?
Yeah, I think, we do, we can tailor some of our professional services options. I think, I always look at it like, a car, I've not got the expertise to fit the brakes myself. I could do so, but ultimately, it's always best to get specialists involved. we do various different remote deployment options. And we also offer a number of education services, whether that be from an end user point of view or from a IT admin point of view too.
Okay, and then a question from me in relation to promotions at the moment. We were talking about that. Do you just want to explain that to everyone today? What VMware have done in relation to the current COVID-19 outbreak? Yeah,
there are various different promotions running at the moment. So I would absolutely recommend to get in touch with Steve to obviously facilitate that, or your account manager at Servium. We've put some packages together in place to support COVID-19. So I believe they was made available through channel yesterday. So yeah, I think with that, there's packages in place, but yeah, it's best obviously to get in touch with you guys on that side of things. Okay.
And they were just launched yesterday, so that's sort of quite hot off the press then. So quite
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, that's a question, Dom. Thanks for that. So what I'm going to do now is basically, actually there's another question there. What about certificates and two-factor authentication? So I missed that one there. Is that possible?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we do a number of, so our internal email is actually managed by certificate authentication. So yeah, absolutely. We also support things like Kerberos as well. Two-factor authentication, again, absolutely critical. When from an end user point of view, if I log in to my Workspace ONE catalog when I'm in a somewhere, let's say working remote, let's say in a Starbucks or Costa or somewhere like that, I am prompted to enter my two-factor authentication. So we use RSA internally and VMware Verify, and you can use multiple different two-factor authentication tools to do so. But VMware Verify does actually come as part of the VMware licenses included.
Okay, good. I don't think there's any more question then. So what I'd like to do now is launch the poll. It's important that we get feedback from user customers in relation to our INOOT webinars. So if you wouldn't mind completing that poll, or also if for anyone who'd like to know any sort of more information, have a bit more deep dive around the various VMware platforms, Workspace ONE, etc., the promotions that are in place for the next few months, then again, if you want to highlight that in the poll, then your account manager can then come back to you individually, and we can set up those discussions separately. So Dom, thanks very much for that. I know obviously we're limited for time, but we felt it was important to put the webinar on today because customers are facing a lot of challenges in the current environment around enabling their end users working from home. So thanks for stepping up to the plate on that one, Dom, because we did move our schedule around to fit this one in. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind completing the poll, it's really important for us to tailor this moving forward. We always take your feedback seriously. If you have any further questions, then get in touch with your account manager. We have a dedicated INOOT email address as well that you can send those to. As far as the next INOOT is concerned, it's because Easter's coming up in a couple of weeks' time. We're actually holding that on Thursday, the 9th of April. Initially, that's going to be in partnership with HP around some of their endpoint devices, particularly around security. I think we touched on this today as well, that you've got a lot of people that are now potentially working from home. So the security really is key. So just some around the security features around HP devices. But what we're also looking to do is maybe integrate that with our own experience of working from home, helping customers work from home as well. What have we found? What challenges have customers faced? And maybe a panel within Servium having a discussion in partnership with HP on how we can help you work from home, make your workforce more agile and so on and so forth. So that's Thursday, the 9th of April, just before Easter. Easter break. So keep your eye out for the invites coming out next week on that. Okay, well, that's it for today. I really appreciate everyone taking the time. John, we've had a good audience today, some good questions. Dom, I know we just scratched the surface. So again, thank you very much for your time. Like I say, any further interest, questions, drop us an email. But in the meantime, that's it for today, and everyone stay safe. Thank you very much.